see here. Okay, we are live. I just realized that. I missed the countdown. I'm Chris Saliza. That is Jeffrey Scully of Decision Desk HQ. Chuck Todd, the goateed and bearded one, will be here, we think, shortly. So, but this is Welcome to Virginia election night. Unexpected. April 21st, not usually an election night for Virginia, but this proposal to remake the congressional map in Virginia is on the ballot, is being voted on. Polls have literally just closed, 7 p.m. God bless Virginia for early poll closing times. Jeffrey, let's talk about, while we wait for results, and we'll have guests and all that good stuff, but while we wait for results, let's talk about what we know today and where people should be looking tonight.
Yeah. So basically coming into today, the polls that we've seen, and there have not been many, have generally shown a small lead for yes. And in this case, the constitutional amendment language, yes, is supporting the constitutional amendment that would allow redistricting to occur not at the normal time in Virginia, and allow the state legislature's new map to be implemented, or at least potentially, pending some court cases still about it. But it would set the stage for that to potentially happen. No would be a vote against the constitutional amendment that would override the state's bipartisan commission for redistricting, and would block, if it succeeds, block things. So,
and yes, explain yes creates the likelihood of a map that could be 10 Democrats, 1 Republican. No would keep the current map in place that is 6 Dems, 5 Republicans. Right, Jeffrey?
Yes. And actually, Lauren, if you'd bring up what I'm sharing right now, I thought I tried to create a visual that I thought would maybe help people. So the current map in Virginia, which was drawn by 2 special masters, basically, the Virginia Supreme Court is the backstop for the bipartisan commission in Virginia that was set up in 2020 and was first used in the post 2020 census redistricting cycle. The bipartisan commission failed to come up with an agreement, so the state Supreme Court had
what a surprise!
Yes, I know, stunning, right? And because of that, the map that they ended up drawing essentially had 6 districts that Kamala Harris went on to carry in the 2024 election, and 5 that Donald Trump carried. Now, some of those are quite competitive.
Right.
For instance, the 2nd district in Virginia was a seat that Trump very, very narrowly carried. And so on this chart, by the way, negative here is just, it's Kamala Harris's margin.
Right.
So
that 12 means Trump won by 12, minus 12. Right.
Correct. Yes. And so that's the current map. So the proposed map that the Democratic state legislature has passed in anticipation that this will pass, that the constitutional amendment will succeed, would create 10 districts that Kamala Harris carried, and 1 extremely red district that covers most of Southwest and parts of Western Virginia that Donald Trump carried by nearly 50 points. And you end up with a lot of these marginally Democratic seats, +3, +5, +7.5, +8.5. Because, I mean, that's what gerrymandering is. You're trying to make your vote, the party that's doing the gerrymandering, trying to make your vote more efficient and make your opponent's vote waste most of it, and make it very inefficient. And that's what the proposal would do.
And just for people who, just by way of context, if you're just signing into this and saying, why the hell is Virginia having this constitutional amendment vote? This is part of a series of attempts that have began with Texas last summer. Texas carved what they believe to be, although we'll see, what they believe to be is 4 more Republican districts out of that state. That was done by the state legislature, signed by the governor. Every state operates a little differently. The response was in California with Gavin Newsom, where they passed something similar to this, right, Jeffrey, where you basically have to undo the way that the lines have been drawn currently and put this in a temporary basis. That expected to potentially add 4 Democratic seats. We've seen Missouri do this, Virginia, Florida. There's a possibility, although Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has delayed to see how this does in Virginia. Honestly, he's delayed it for another week, a possible special session. Anywhere else I'm missing, Jeffrey, that's done this kind of redistricting since Texas did it?
Yeah. So basically, you covered it. California on the Democratic side, Virginia would be if successful, would be the second that joins in on the Democratic side. Uh, Missouri, North Carolina, Texas, and Ohio are states where Republicans redrew. Ohio, actually, because of a constitutional amendment there in 2018, has a system where if there's not essentially a certain degree of bipartisan agreement on a map, they have to redraw, which is convenient if you're the Republicans in control of Ohio. And now you get to do a mid-cycle redraw for constitutional reasons. And they have drawn a map that is at least a little bit more advantageous, though there was actually bipartisan agreement. Surprisingly, it was not as quite as an aggressive map as I think we thought might come out of Ohio. So I'm actually trying, if I can bring up what I'm trying to bring up here successfully, but essentially showing how like redistricting could play out in some of these states.
So right, just by way of context. You pulled it up. Go ahead, go.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention Utah had a state court order to redraw that has helped Democrats out by creating a very blue seat around Salt Lake City that they are basically guaranteed to capture. So right now, all the states above Virginia on this chart or table have redistricted, and basically you have a situation where if the Democrats sort of get their best outcome, they could gain, and they get Virginia, they could gain as many as 8 seats out of this thing. And on the Republican side, if they sort of get the most Republican favorable outcome, Republicans could gain as many as 7.
And I see you giving Texas 5, which I may have underplayed.
Well, that's the most Republican outcome. Now, I think the real answer is going to be somewhere between these numbers.
Of course.
And the question is going to be, at the end, I mean, I would say, based on where things are right now, you might give Democrats a slight edge, 2-3 net seats out of this thing, maybe more, just based on the current electoral environment. But obviously it remains to be seen.
And I think that it's fascinating. Talk about the law of unintended consequences in politics, right? I mean, when Texas did this, it was at the express direction of Donald Trump and his political team, because they were looking at a not great national political environment and a very narrow House majority, right? And saying like, oh, hey, we gotta figure out ways before the 2026 election to make this happen. But my guess is, and I'm interested in yours, but my guess is that, it nets out to be kind of a wash, maybe, R +1, D +1, but it's not going to make a huge difference. And, I guess I'm assuming if yes passes, if yes doesn't pass in Virginia, that could lean things a little bit more. And Florida does go and redistrict. It could be a little bit more of an edge, but it just shows you what started in Texas is not going to be the thing I think Democrats feared, which was like a 20 seat, Republican pickup here.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it is unlikely that the House will be determined, like House control will be determined by redistricting.
Right.
That's not to say that it won't matter, because it is possible that it will end up boosting. Democrats look favored to win the House. It is possible that if they gain more out of this now, I should note, Florida's not, we haven't included it on this table yet because we're still kind of waiting to see.
Right. We're waiting to see. Yeah.
But if Florida gets added to that, the sort of Republican possibilities grow a little bit relative, and the Democratic ones shrink a little bit, because Republicans would control the redistricting process in Florida. And so maybe it really is just a D +1 kind of situation in the end. So, much ado about nothing kind of, at least in the sense of House control. Now, I don't want to underrate it, because it could end up helping at the margins for one side, especially if one party does much better than expected, or has, a 90th percentile kind of night in terms of how well they do.
But it's not going to be determinative. Can we go back to Virginia? Because you did by the way, for people joining, welcome. We are this is one in a series of live election nights that myself, Chris Liza, Chuck Todd, who will be with us, and Jeffrey Skill and the great folks at DDHQ. We're getting, this is some obviously 1% in, but we're starting to get a little bit. I'm glad you pulled that map up, Jeffrey, because I wanted you, in your preview that you did on the Decision Desk HQ Substack, you went through 3 areas / counties that should be leading indicators for us. Can you do that? And I just want to note to people something that you told me that I want to share, which is Virginia tends to report a little bit south to north. Is that broadly fair? I'm trying to, I want to give people a sense of, if you see no being way ahead, don't jump to any conclusions
okay,
yet.
no, absolutely. In that case, yes. Okay, so I understand what you mean now. Yes, from south to north, yes, in the sense that a lot of Northern Virginia localities will report large chunks of their votes later. That's not true of all of them,
Right.
But it has been true historically for places like Fairfax County, where about an eighth of the state's population.
Huge amount. That's where I live. Yeah. It's where, it's a huge county with huge population. All right. So talk about areas on this map people should be looking out for.
So one of the earliest places we're going to get most of the vote from, if they follow previous patterns, which obviously that can change. Election night can be weird for a locality that isn't used to it. And I say locality because Virginia is the one state that has a boatload of independent cities and counties that are, and the independent cities are county equivalents. So sometimes it's a little weird when you're talking about it. You can't just say county to describe all these different localities. That's why you see these little small circles. That's Winchester right there.
Right. And in Arlington, there's some.
And then in Arlington, Arlington's a county, but Alexandria's a city. Anyway, Virginia, it's a weird place. I grew up there, so I feel comfortable saying that.
No one knows more about this than Jeffrey Skelly, just for the record. Well, you're in the right place.
I spent a lot of time looking at Virginia politics. Loudoun County in Northern Virginia is one of the largest places in the state, population-wise. They'll probably have about 5% of the overall statewide vote, which will put it sort of in the below Fairfax, where it'll be 13, 14%. See, look, we actually just have a lot.
Half of the vote in.
Good timing.
Look at its timing.
Yes. Loudoun County, known for being very quick, even perhaps by 8 o'clock. That was probably the early vote being dropped. And so the fact that Loudoun 16, 17-point lead for yes, I'd say that's marginal and maybe good for yes, but I'll look at that.
Which is let's just take a quick step back. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Loudoun County was like, Republican redoubt. But the way that growth has happened, Loudoun is now much, much more Democratic. And broadly speaking, although, a redistricting congressional amendment is a little bit different than like a up and down vote, Democrats are largely spending the money behind yes, and Republicans broadly are spending the money behind no. Just for people who are wondering, like
yes, 100%. I mean, it does look like from the polls that this is breaking down along partisan lines.
Yeah.
So just to finish off, Loudoun probably going to get a lot of the vote in pretty quickly, and so that'll be an indicator, because if it's sort of better than 55, 56% for yes, I think that would be an indication that yes is probably favored if we have most of the vote in from there. It's a blue-leaning place. It's not overwhelmingly blue. It's not as blue as Fairfax is or Prince William County next to it, but that's sort of, understanding what's going on there. Now, with Virginia Beach, this is one of the other places. Virginia Beach tends to report its election day vote before it reports its mail ballot vote. So right now, this result actually would be, we have barely any votes from Virginia Beach.
Right.
So, it's 2.5% or whatever. But Virginia Beach is probably one where it will trend blue over the course of the night because of how they report. Election day votes are going to be more Republican leaning. Early votes and mail ballot votes are going to be more Democratic leaning. We've seen this since 2020. It's not as sharp a difference as it used to be, but it still is a difference that you have to watch out for. But Virginia Beach is a slightly right-leaning but relatively swingy place. It's the largest city in the state of Virginia. It also is about 5% of the vote. So if it's a place where no is ahead by 4 or 5 points, I would think that would be a good sign for the no campaign. Whereas if it's really tight or yes is even ahead, that would be very good news for yes. And lastly, we have Montgomery County. Now, barely any vote from here. Why do I choose Montgomery? Way out here in the western part of the state, most of the population of Virginia is sort of in what's known as the urban crescent in the eastern half of the state. That's sort of Washington, D.C. metro to Richmond to where like Virginia Beach down in the Tidewater, Hampton Roads area, as it's known. Montgomery County, though, is about one of the only swingy places in the western part of the state. It's where Virginia Tech is, Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yep.
So
gigantic university.
Yes, basically the biggest. It or George Mason are the biggest universities in the state, at least in the public schools, in terms of student population. So Montgomery tends to be, I would say, a little left-leaning, but it's because of student population, it's prone to very big swings in turnout. So I think we've seen some evidence that in terms of the election day counts, reports we've gotten throughout the day, that voter turnout in college communities, which is very Democratic leaning, in places like Montgomery County or Charlottesville, where the University of Virginia is, or Harrisonburg, where James Madison University is, those places, it seems to be down for a lot from 2025.
You're telling me college kids are not interested in voting on a congressional redistricting amendment, Jeffrey?
Yeah,
They're
it doesn't quite have the same
college
pop.
Kids like us. Yeah.
It doesn't have quite the same pop as the gubernatorial election did last fall. So anyway, I would say that essentially this is a place where I'm curious about the turnout. And obviously, I think no needs to carry it very narrowly. If it's about 50-50, I think that would indicate a very close race. But if yes is ahead here, that would be a good sign for them, especially given that the turnout might be down.
Turnout broadly, Jeffrey, do we have any sense statewide? Do we have any sense of where it is? I mean, look, if it's anywhere close to, it's not going to be, I would assume, anywhere that close to the gubernatorial in 2025 when we last did this about Virginia, right? I mean, just the nature of it. It's not in November. It's a redistricting amendment to the Constitution, right? I mean, it's hard to get people to sort of know about it, but.
Sure. Well, it certainly attracted a lot of attention. I mean, Chuck's
here.
Hey,
hi, Chuck.
Hello there.
Skelly is breaking down turnout right now.
I just say that right now our rough estimate is about 3 million votes. To put that in perspective, about 3.4 million were cast in the gubernatorial election. So still pretty high in the grand scheme of things. Not
a redistricting amendment in April.
Yes.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think
extraordinarily high and high turnout is, I assume. Well, you tell me, Jeffrey.
I would think in this situation, it's good for no.
I think
is that wrong?
Normally,
I would say
more election day vote, and the election day vote is going to be more Republican leaning, and I think that would be the more election day votes there are, the better it is for no.
Got it. Okay. Hey, we not only have Chuck here now, we also have Nathaniel Rakich of Vote Beat. So let's bring Nathaniel in, our first guest of the night.
Hey guys.
Off. Hi, Nathaniel. All right. So Skelly was just breaking down sort of Virginia Beach, Loudoun County, and then Montgomery with tech. Are there any other places you have an eye on to give? People always want an early indicator of what's happening. Like, when you look at this, what do you see?
I see a Christmas tree.
The colors we chose, red and green.
I like green and red. It was an interesting decision by you guys over there, Skelly. Yeah,
that's true.
Christmas coming.
I don't know.
April. Right.
I think I'm focused on the same areas that everybody else is interested in. I think ultimately, unless, this referendum really does better than we think it will do, the tape will be told in Nova, with the DC suburbs, coming into, on the cavalry for the Democrats. I was just taking a look, while I was backstage, sorting by the most reporting counties, on your guys' votes page. And I don't know if you've talked about this already, but it looks like there's one county that's like basically all in Matthews County, which I don't even know where that is.
Skelly will know. This is like his wheelhouse.
Yeah, this is a test, Jeffrey.
But
can he pick
I found it.
A random map, right?
Okay, clicked a little south initially, but yes, this is a very, very small county, but it's very red, right on the Chesapeake Bay.
And so these numbers are pretty similar to the 2025 AG race results. So Miyares won this county 72-28. And that obviously was a race that was won by Jay Jones, who was kind of the weaker candidate, right? Like, Jay Jones was, obviously everybody else, Spanberger did really, really well. Jay Jones obviously had his scandal. And so I think that's a good test case for, what does it look like if, this isn't a crazy good night for Democrats, but, maybe you have some moderate, independents who are like, well, I'm not going to go that far as to support, a guy who supported political violence, or in this case, a Democratic gerrymander. But I would be surprised if it turns out to have a similar map to this. Obviously, I should say this is just one county, and patterns could be very different elsewhere in the state. So we'll see.
Hey, Skelly, here's something I'm curious. I don't know how many people picked up on this, but the Yes campaign had to do an addendum to their Obama ad. And it was, so you have the, right, we've had competing Obama, we've had the dueling Obama ads, right? We've got the Yes ad and we've got the No ad, where he's talking about the problem of gerrymandering, how it polarizes Congress and how terrible it is. And what was
So
interesting.
vote yes for gerrymandering.
Right. So over the weekend, so Liz and I, we
see
watch,
so many of these friggin' ads,
right?
because
We
we
watch
baseball.
We watch a lot of Nats
Oh, yes.
baseball, and the Nats have a brand new TV deal,
It's
which
been
also
better
means
this year.
they are, but they
Don't
also have no
patronize us.
advertisers yet, so they have a clean slate.
That's right. They have no advertising. That's so true.
Thank God for these political campaigns. It's probably boosting the revenue stream for the Nats, this fledgling new Nats TV network. Hopefully it means they can do better promos than yay or nay with the team, but I digress. But I don't know if people caught this, but the most recent version of the Yes Obama ad you have some trailing audio. So you see Obama on camera, then you don't see him on camera. And it's clear he's recorded an extra piece that says, and in the constitutional amendment, we'll go back to the different way that they put in this extra addendum, which told me that they realized that the no Obama ad was having an impact. They knew the no Obama, and they needed to sort of explain what Obama meant there, right? And they used it. So this is a long, windy way of saying, if there was some concern about Obama's no comments that were being used, where would we find that? Is this in some black majority counties that we'd be looking at to see if there's any, where there clearly was concern in the Yes campaign that the Obama impact was sort of being neutralized. Where would you be looking for
I would
that?
actually think it might be more likely in places. It might be harder to see on a county level
I
map.
think it is going to be harder to see,
But in some precincts that are Democratic leaning in places like Northern Virginia or the Richmond suburbs, that are very affluent, where I think you do see a little more tendency for the potential for a Democratic voter to say, I know a lot, like high information about this,
Right.
and more likely to have seen a lot of this stuff, and might be more responsive to the no campaigns, making a credible case that like this is a pretty egregious gerrymander, and people were against gerrymander before they were for it, kind of line of attack.
I just want to make sure people who aren't as nerdy as us understand. Nathaniel and Jeffrey, feel free to tag team this, but can you explain how, if yes passes, what they did to try to turn it from 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans to, in theory, again, we never know if it's going to happen, but voters actually have to vote, but to 10-1. Can you just explain how they went about building a map that does that? Nathaniel, why don't you start?
It's a classic bacon mander. Jeffrey, I don't know if you have the actual
classic
map.
Say that again. Hold on. You can't throw out something like
You're
classic.
Right. You did
the old.
I can bring it up on
aren't as
screen for
nerdy as
folks.
us.
All right.
So the bacon mander is kind of I guess you'd call it like a meme on like election Twitter, right? But it's basically like, people, Democrats specifically, have drawn these kind of like fantasy maps of like, I think Illinois and New York are like the classic examples, where it's basically like strips of bacon, like where you go from Chicago all the way downstate, and like you do that like 15 times.
So
right?
this is the Northern Virginia bacon map.
Exactly.
Just like Fairfax. Fairfax, Arlington County,
So
right?
basically, it's all
or the
arms.
Scorpion. The 7th district,
like
scorpion
that.
or
There you go. The
lobster
Virginia
has been
scorpion.
the animal.
Yep.
So this
Yeah,
is the.
I want to credit Chaz
proposed
Nuttycombe with scorpion. Chaz
I
Nuttycombe
was-
is state navigator.
I wanted to go with octopus, but it was
Well,
sort
the
of an
snake-
octopus
The tail.
that
That was
with
his
its
line.
tentacles all in one place. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right, this is the proposed 10-1 map. Nathaniel, feel free to talk to it.
Yeah, so basically you can kind of see how all of these districts have these tentacles that go into Northern Virginia, which of course is the biggest source of Democratic votes in Virginia, very populous area, very blue area. And then they extend out into rural areas and, really basically overwhelm all of the Republican voters there. And you can see on the left side there, the, Morgan Griffiths district, that's just like packing in all of the Republicans that they can't get in one of those Northern Virginia based districts.
Yeah, Morgan
and then you have the
Griffith's
6th
district is
district on the
now
west
so
here.
Republican.
The
All
6th
right.
district here is the college district. It's
Right.
It stretches from James Madison University in Harrisonburg
Oh yeah,
over over to University of Virginia in Charlottesville. It does include Liberty, which is interesting. That is one of the most Republican precincts in the state of Virginia. But they did include all of Lynchburg. They didn't crack it in this proposal, which I thought was interesting. And then, of course, stretches down to Blacksburg and Virginia Tech, and also Radford University.
They literally put like almost every major university.
My understanding is it will be the youngest district in the is
this going to be the most?
That's a fun fact.
Or at least one of them.
Let
me check that. But
what's the most? Is that the one that's the least Democratic though overall?
Yes, that's why it's the lightest blue on this map.
Yeah. All right. Here's my sort of what I don't understand the rationale of what they did. If they had done nothing, Nathaniel, excuse me. They had done nothing. The likelihood the Democrats would have picked up 2 seats anyway, the first and the second. If they'd done nothing with this map, the likelihood they ended up with this political environment an 8-3.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rob Whitman in the first district, that certainly was not a gimme. I mean, neither is the second district, right? Jen Kiggins is still a pretty formidable incumbent, but like, I think you're right. I think they would have picked up at least 1 seat, quite possibly 2. This one gives them a much better shot, obviously, at more seats and could pad that House majority. But it is interesting, right? Because like, it does kind of rely on a good environment for Democrats, an environment in which they're probably already winning the House. And I think you have seen a lot of chat, like of all of the gerrymanders that have been passed, there's been a lot of talk about dummy manders in places like Texas. I think this is the most likely one to actually be a dummy mander. Although I think you could debate whether it's actually dumb in the sense that like, if it performs to a 10-1, map right now, or in 2026, I should say, that's doing its job. But
what's the likelihood it ends up a 9-2 anyway?
You mean under the
old map? Yeah.
No, that it's 9-2 under the new.
Oh, you mean 9-2 under the.
Here's what I keep coming back to.
Oh, I see.
Is that a good Democratic night could get them to 8-3 without touching their map?
Right.
Yes.
The wrong candidate winning in a primary could make that one more vulnerable, and they could end up with a 9-2 rather than the 10-1.
Under the new map.
My point is that I just think they basically have peed away Abigail Spanberger's political capital, peed away Barack Obama's political capital. I know I'm somehow trying to make it.
I mean, isn't this?
This is a family friendly.
This to me is the most.
The base wants it.
Look, I had to click things on YouTube about how friendly this was, right? So
it feels like the dumbest political strategy going. I mean, it is the classic case of it's not cutting off your nose to spite your face, because I don't think it's not like they're going to lose ground here, but I don't think they accomplish what they think they're accomplishing.
I just think it's a fun. Go ahead, Nathaniel. Go ahead.
Because, like, I think that, Gavin Newsom, if we're talking presidential politics, I think Gavin Newsom did himself a lot of favors by going out on that limb when nobody thought, everybody was like, oh, Texas is doing this thing. California, we were like, oh, well, it's locked into the commission. And Gavin Newsom was like, no, we are going to go around this. And I think you got a lot of political capital among Democrats who want to fight back against Trump. And, like, quite frankly, Abigail Spanberger's if she decides she wants to run president, which I don't really think she will, but like her biggest liability is going to be getting through a Democratic primary. And this would help her with that. So I'm not sure.
See, I'm with Nathaniel. I think it's just like a straight up base service move. It's
I know Texas, it's a base. I mean, I'm not saying.
So my point is, strategically, you're not wrong.
Okay,
but they felt pressured to do it from national Democrats.
But what I would argue is, for 15 years, the Democratic Party was the party of fair districts.
Right.
And then they decided not to be. And
I think they gave up that high ground a while ago. But
this is like eviscerating the high ground, right? This is taking a blowtorch to it. I just don't.
There is no high ground left.
Right. I just don't see they're doing all of this for what I think ends up really being 2 seats. And it just feels like a lot of effort for 2 seats.
Skelly, can you just get us through just update us on where, because there's a ton of Southwest in, and I know just from my secret birdies that this Decision Desk HQ has significantly more vote in than some of our competitors. So why don't we just walk people through where the vote is and what this time. And Nathaniel, feel free, by the way, if you see counties, jump in and tell us.
Let's go to Loudon, which I'm sure Jeff.
Yeah, I think Loudon's the big story. We have most of it there.
Usually the story. Yeah.
Oh gosh, so it even went up from when we had half. Basically.
Yeah, and
this tells you everything you need to know about the rest of Nova.
Yeah, if Loudon, look, no needs this margin to be something more like 14.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's right now it's 22. And that's a big
with
edge
almost all
for
the vote
yes.
reporting.
With almost all vote.
Right. It's not
reporting.
going to change drastically at this
No,
point. Right.
No. And so
Right.
that would be a really, I mean, the Loudon vote is a very good sign for the yes campaign. I think that's very clear because, you know, when Glenn Youngkin won in 2021 or when Donald Trump won the presidency in 2024, obviously Kamala Harris still carried Virginia, but Loudon was one, you know, Virginia closes at 7:00. You get, and Loudon is notoriously good at getting their votes in very quickly, very efficient, very good tabulating system there. It's a real good early indicator of how the night's going to go. And you saw in 2024, like, oh, Harris didn't win, may not be winning Loudon by enough for similar places to work out in her favor in other parts of the country. No guarantee, but just as like an early warning sign kind of situation.
Guys,
Well, take a look at Prince William, by the way, right next door. It's also a blowout.
Yeah, see, we have about half the vote there. Now, it's usually a little bluer than Loudon.
And it is slightly bluer.
And it is slightly bluer right now.
Does this match,
well, greener,
but
I
if
guess.
No was going to win, we would see it in these outer suburbs first, don't we think? I mean,
yeah,
we would
I
see
mean,
margins.
I think the problem for them is that this would need to be lower because look, the western half of Loudoun County is more rural. It is actually somewhat more Republican leaning. The eastern part is where it's much denser, much more built up exurb, even sub-suburb. And the fact that you have, you know, it would appear that like turnout hasn't been overwhelmingly like no folks showing up from like the western part of the county and making this closer, or maybe it's even more important to say like some potential yes voter Democrats not showing up from the eastern part of the county. That does not seem to be happening.
Did Nathaniel or Jeffrey, you guys were, Nathaniel was mentioning sort of comping these counties to 2025. Now, a reminder, Spanberger wins by, did she win by, was it 15 in the end?
Yeah, it was about 15.
I believe so.
So is that, what is, Nathaniel, what is our Loudoun and Prince William roughly? So it's 61-39 there, and I think 64-36 in Prince William. Is that, I would assume it's still under the Spanberger number. Is that right?
Yeah. So Spanberger got 65% in Loudon and in Prince William 67%. But you know,
so like
tickling up
3
against
points
there.
under,
and, right. And yes is doing better than Jay Jones, which, as I mentioned,
yeah,
is kind of
that was actually
oh, right, that's a better comp.
I was bringing this up actually. Jay Jones won Loudon about 60-40. So right now it's actually kind of in the same vicinity, 61-39.
And the Jay Jones,
and what was his final margin? 8?
Margin, yeah.
7, I think.
7. Okay.
Yeah, 6-7. Yeah.
And that was the closest of those statewide.
Because
the
lieutenant governor's race was like about 11.
So
right, it went governor, lieutenant governor, AG in terms of margin, right? Okay.
So if we're looking at all those comps, then yes may win by more than 5.
It seems possible now, which is surprising. You know, we were talking about some of these.
Yeah, I'd have taken the under on that.
Yeah,
well, Chuck and I did this on the podcast on Monday, and I think I said 55, and Chuck said 53 or something.
I'd take the under.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not think it would be double digits. I was pretty
well. In the reporting today, at least what I saw and what people told me, it said like actually no, it's closer than we thought, not further from the race. But
that's why you always be careful with those like, turnout.
The power
numbers,
of Northern Virginia, you know,
in midday.
You're right, Nathaniel. You're totally right.
It's like
the
power of Northern
for
Virginia
voters to turn out after they vote. Those noon turnout reports drive me crazy because it's like, guys, there's still 7 hours to vote.
It's like the first wave of exit polling when we used to have exit polling.
Exactly.
But I think that, you know, you want to know the worst thing that no campaign could have done is what they did last night when Donald Trump held a and I'm like, what are you doing?
I shouldn't have had Trump involved.
He's
poison in Virginia.
He is the most anti-Trump.
Certainly in Northern Virginia.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, Northern Virginia is on fire when it comes to Trump because everybody in Northern Virginia either knows somebody Trump is laid off or got doged or, you know, it's personal in Northern Virginia. It is so on another level. And that's why, frankly, I don't know what took the Yes campaign so long to not make this about Donald Trump. I mean, you know,
because California did that from the jump.
There was only one message to make. Just make it about Donald Trump, and you're probably past this thing. Weirdly, they spent a lot of time explaining themselves.
I mean, I do think that no was in between a rock and a hard place because, if you just kind of let it be in terms of the normal turnout patterns, like Democrats are the ones who are going to be turning out no matter what.
That's
and like,
right.
I kind of understand that at the last minute, if you're losing, you pull that emergency brake and you say, you know what? The one thing that can win us this race is if Donald Trump really energizes the Republican base. So like, I kind of understand what they were getting at, but like, I don't think they were going to win either way.
I agree. I think it's exactly right. It's like, well, last ditch, try to make it, try to drive every Republican in the state to no, because they must have known. I mean, my guess is they see the data that suggests they're going to lose. And I will note, by the way, and I got this from the great Jeffrey Skelly, yes, a little more than 2-1 outspent no on TV, 50-ish million to 20 million, right, Jeffrey? So, I mean, it's a Democratic leaning state in a good Democratic year with a big spending advantage. Now, it's complicated, right? It's not as easy as like vote for the Democrat or vote for the Republican, but like, yes, should win under these circumstances, right, Nathaniel?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
By the way,
I
though,
just want
a yes win means Florida will redistrict.
Right.
We
Like,
were
that's
talking
been on
about
the
when
fence.
Ben
about
came
that,
on
too.
about DeSantis waiting to see what this is.
That's
Yeah.
I did
that's
think that
what
was
this
very
was all
interesting.
about. And I do think had no won, this would have ended the redistricting wars. Like, it would have been over.
Well,
I
the
think that's
pressure on
very-
DeSantis will
I think
go
that would
up
have been
too.
Right.
But
I think that would have
now-
been very interesting. The curious thing about Florida is that, in states like Texas, they were shouting from the rooftops, we're doing this for partisan gain, right? Because they wanted to avoid a racial gerrymandering lawsuit. In Florida, the state constitution prohibits partisan gerrymandering. And so they actually are in a bind too, where they have to come up with a credible excuse to redraw the map that isn't just partisan gerrymandering.
And by the way, it's pretty gerrymandered already.
Yes.
And I do think, look, I know what they want to try to do, which is you talked about the bacon. Well, they want to put the bacon on a horizontal line, essentially, and take all those Broward County and Palm Beach County and Democratic held districts like Jared Moskowitz and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and essentially make these east to west, right? And go all the way to the southwest and go get those Republican voters in Naples and in Sarasota and all that stuff and drag them across Lake Okeechobee and drag them across the Everglades. Okay, but it is, they kind of already, it's already a pretty gerrymandered map. So
it's like when Pritzker talked about, we're going to do
likelihood of a
Illinois. I was like,
gerrymander
what
is
else are you
high.
going to do in Illinois? It's already pretty bad.
Right.
Nathaniel, we're going to let you go because you've already been very kind to us. Nathaniel Rakich of VoteBeat. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Great to have you, Nathaniel.
Skelly, you want to make a point on this?
Yeah, so
With what
so
we've
I
got
brought
pulled
up I brought up our votes page for the redistricting amendment vote. So DDHQ Votes is our new election data portal. People should check it out.
It's amazing.
We have a lot of information in here, and just sort of thinking about, for example, you can compare on the county results here. You can compare. We have the 2024 presidential in here, which is similar race in terms of margin to the AG race, not terribly different. And we have targets. And so these vote targets, essentially think of them as benchmarks that each side needed to get to. And what you'll notice on a lot of these, if it's to the left of the benchmark, it's better for yes. And a lot of these places that are mostly reported, the dot is to the left of that line, that yellow line, because that's like the
benchmark of where they would need
like
to
the
get.
benchmark, the break even kind of point.
That's like 50-50.
Yeah. And then you take that and you can look at like Loudoun, for example, the election day vote in Loudoun. Honestly, that's better for yes than I would have thought yes would have had on election day, even in Loudoun, just because, there's still a lot of Republicans who live in Loudoun. So obviously absentee and early in person was more Democratic leaning, but election day vote in Loudoun, not dramatically different, which is fascinating. And I think telling that maybe the election day vote won't be quite as Republican leaning.
That is interesting. I mean, it's within a
it
point
needed
and a
to be
half.
for no.
Yeah, it's within a point and a half of the early.
Yeah. So that's just an interesting finding that we can see.
And so for people, just as Jeffrey scrolls, look, that yellow dot is a 50-50 race, and anything to the left of that yellow dot is good for yes, and anything to the right of that yellow dot is good for no. That's basically right, Jeffrey?
Yes. And so even in these very red counties, most of these are in Southwest Virginia, or at least a lot of them are. Carroll and Wythe County are in Grayson, are all down in Southwest Virginia. The even though they were very red, no 68, no by 65, no by almost 67, hair to the left of where they needed to be. Now, obviously, not every county is perfect in that way, and there won't be, some places will not have a uniform shift. Some will have a more noticeable, like will outperform those numbers by more or underperform them by more, depending on which viewpoint you're looking at, yes or no. But you can tend to see, except in very, very close elections, you can sort of see a pattern where the winning side is usually outperforming where it needs to be across,
Jeffrey,
across most places.
Before we bring our next guest in, and I know he's waiting and we will, just click on those Polymarket and Kalshi market projections.
They've
That kind
called
of
it.
tells you what you need to know.
Yeah, they've already called
Polymarket's
it.
99.7. Kalshi's not. I mean, it's basically the same. So, I mean, if you need a sense of
Kalshi,
where it's at,
Kalshi's happened so quickly, we haven't even been able to update the. It's yes, but it's not even on our chart yet because it just
Right.
it's just, it'll be on there momentarily once this refreshes, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's bring in James Downs, the National Journal, if we can, Lauren. James, thanks for waiting. Hey,
Hey, James.
Hey
James,
guys, how are you guys doing?
We're good, man. We're just talking. Skelly was just saying that the Loudon Prince William kind of looks determinative. Give us your take. I mean, obviously, it's been 41 minutes since polls closed, so I don't want to draw too many conclusions, but give us your take.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys were sort of saying, and the betting odds sort of see, I would still rather be the yes than no. I feel like everyone I've talked to has suggested that, and I think it's trending toward a yes. I think so. The earlier counties, as you can see on the map, are the very deep red counties, and we still have a lot of counties still outstanding. Fairfax and Richmond, are still some big ones, and
we don't have any votes from Fairfax.
Yeah,
right.
And
and you can kind of assume where that might be heading, and I think it's Democrats were preparing for a mirage, as they do often in Virginia, right? Whether it's a congressional election or otherwise. And so I think it seems like it's heading toward a yes, or Democrats feel good, I should say.
And I would assume that until we get some from Fairfax, you're not going to see a call either way, just because it's such a Jeffrey. How much of the vote is in Fairfax? Did you say?
I mean, it's like roughly an eighth.
Right.
It's like
so
13,
like with
13-ish%.
0 in, if people are wondering why you haven't seen a call potentially yet, that may be it. Chuck, over to you.
Well, it's
Sorry,
interesting because people might be like, well, no is leading right now, but it's just that there's so much of the vote still left outstanding in these places that we know are more likely to vote yes. City of Richmond, very Democratic. Henrico County around it right here, very Democratic. We don't have any votes from those places yet, and that's and Fairfax is the biggest one, but that's
In 2016 Virginia presidential,
yes,
it was taking forever for Clinton to grab the lead, and it was like, oh my God, and it was actually a little bit of a sign of what was to come everywhere else. But I remember, it did seem, and then when it turned, and it was, but they needed all of Northern Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that election night very well because I was at the time working for the University of Virginia Center for Politics, so I was focused especially on what was going on in Virginia, and obviously Trump was doing great and it looked like he was going to probably win the presidency, but I was like pretty sure Fairfax is going to come in here and Virginia is not going to be that close, or I mean it'll be close, but not like very very close. And it wasn't, because Fairfax came in with again, when you're
and she ended up winning by a healthy margin.
Yes, she did.
But it all came from Northern Virginia. Yep. Like that was a year where she didn't really do well anywhere else in the state.
I was just, do you guys have, I mean, California, right? Skelly, you'll know this off the top of your head. What did it pass with? 66, the California amendment, 60-something% of the vote. Is there a reason, James or Jeffrey or Chuck, that this probably doesn't get there? Is it just that Virginia isn't California, or is it that, Skelly wrote about the Virginia way, Chuck? I don't know if you saw that, but Virginia way. Well, this idea that, I always think of the Virginia way. I think of John Warner, the Republican, like genteel and like we don't play like smash mouth politics.
No,
blah, blah, blah.
this doesn't. I get that. I agree. Like this partisan legislative action, and that's what it is. Very partisan.
100%.
I don't think I didn't see this coming out of the Virginia legislature.
Me neither. Yeah. Neither did Abigail Spanberger, probably. Anyway, James,
she was not happy about this. No. Right, I mean, I know she isn't supporting it, but she's not terribly happy about it.
She didn't want to touch that, and like, Republicans never had a chance in California. I know there was a lot of talk. I mean, I heard from a lot of Democrats in the early days of the California referendum, of early days of Prop 50, that this is not a slam dunk, and with Gavin Newsom having his face all over it, like this is going to be a close election. And early polls showed that, of course, right? But then Republicans didn't really put in an effort. Of course, there was the Kevin McCarthy committee that was formed, and everyone was talking they're going to raise like
that's right. We talked about it. The funders didn't. Chuck made that point when we did one or two of these ago. The funding just never came in.
Right, it was never there. And of course, Democrats have outspent Republicans considerably on this one, mostly led by HMF, the Jeffries aligned group. But they've still spent a considerable amount of money here, and it being a more purple state than California is, that's enough to make it, at the very least, competitive, right? You even look at the difference of the ads. Newsom was running ads like, Trump's this fascist and he's dictatorial and this and that. You haven't seen any of that stuff in Virginia.
Can we, Lauren? I know we have. Can we?
Oh, yeah, the ads. Yeah,
let's run the ads so people can see it. Lauren, I think, has one yes and one no. Lauren, if you want to just like run them back to back so we can see them. Chuck, are you all right with that?
Of course.
Yeah, let's.
Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, but right now they are under threat. Over the past year, several Republican-controlled states have taken the unprecedented step of redrawing their congressional maps in the middle of the decade. And they've done it for a simple reason: to give themselves an unfair advantage in the midterms this fall. In April, Virginians can respond by making sure your voting power is not diminished by what Republicans are doing in other states. This amendment gives you the power to level the playing field in the midterms this fall. And voters will have the final say over what the maps look like. This is the responsible thing to do. It's also a temporary measure. After the 2030 census, Virginia will go back to a system that lets a bipartisan redistricting commission redraw the maps. We can't afford 2 more years of unchecked power and zero accountability in Washington. Help us chart a better path forward, Virginia. Early voting begins on March 6th. Election Day is April 21st. Vote yes, Virginia. To get involved, go to virginiansforfairelections.com.
Abigail Spanberger and the Richmond Democrats want to burn Virginia's democracy to the ground. Their rigged congressional maps are designed to elect 10 Democrats and only 1 Republican. It's a scam that would end competitive elections in Virginia and create a liberal inferno of massive tax increases, gun grabs, open borders, and welfare for illegal aliens. On April 21st, throw water on the Democrats' arson job. Defeat partisan gerrymandering. Election Day is April 21st. Vote.
Now, a few notes on those ads.
Yeah.
That second ad never aired in Northern Virginia.
No, God, no. We never
the
saw
no ad.
No.
Right. The no ad in Northern Virginia was about how 2/3 of Virginians voted for fair maps and all of this stuff. It was, and did you notice, and it is so clear to me that this thing really S the bed in initial focus groups, because the amount of detail that they decided the Obama ad had to include.
It's like a class.
Correct. And the fact that they felt they had to put all that in there when, again,
it's temporary and we're doing it for the,
And by the way, after 2030,
it doesn't talk about fairness either. Fairness was like the huge, if you guys recall, right? Like Republicans made a huge deal about this whole idea of fairness, which of course is a subjective term. I think, right?
Right.
And that was their whole argument, is like, what does
Eye of the
fair
beholder.
even mean? And you don't see that at all in that ad. It highlights just about every other thing in that ballot question except the word fairness, temporary, bipartisan, because you know, it's
But
kinda,
the amount of detail they put in tells me, like I said, it's just, boy, the initial research came back and it's like, boy, this is going to be a heavy lift.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they needed Obama for this, right? And then I'm going to go back on that Republican ad. You want to talk about a whiff of an ad? Like, Spanberger's not. Look, I wouldn't be using her as the face of it, right? I'm surprised they did.
I know.
I mean, I know what I would have done if I were to them. I would have been like, do you want to turn Virginia into California? And I might have used Gray Davis. I might have used Nancy Pelosi. Or, Gray Davis, listen to me. Gavin Newsom. Sorry, Freudian slip.
Chuck, it's interesting you say that. I was told that there was some reports that the Spanberger ad for the pro side, the pro redistricting side, got pulled. If you read in some of the local sites, I was told that ad wasn't performing well. It was not a mover. It was the Obama ad, as you just showed. That was the one that.
No, I'm talking about the no ad that used Spanberger as a.
No, correct, but it's just interesting to note that the pro ad.
I don't
for
think
Spanberger,
she.
Well, we've got some new data on her that and it's clearly this redistricting thing has polarized opinion about her. So Democrats overwhelmingly approve, and now Republicans are some who might have even given her an opportunity are very much like, I disapprove. And it's clearly this redistricting vote is charging that. And so I think, to be clear, I think that no ad, which was notable because it used AI basically to create.
Oh, you mean Abigail Spanberger wasn't in a barn pouring gasoline on a fire? I was like, man, how did her advance people not say this may be a bad idea,
This
Governor?
might be dangerous for the governor. I don't know. It might be dangerous.
That's all right. I hear she's showing up in Ethos Life ads now too, so it's crazy.
It's clearly a base ad, right? That one's a base ad. It's not a. That was not a. And Obama was frankly a base ad, but of a different tenor.
That was like a Northern Virginia,
Spanberger
highly educated, right?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Spanberger is becoming kind of a boogie woman of sorts on the right in Virginia, and so I think clearly that ad was trying to grab hold of that to encourage people to turn out.
I hear you on that, Scully. I just don't think it is baked in yet enough, right? You know what I mean? We just went through this. She just won by a big margin. They're just getting started. Like, that to me felt like an ad maker who's living online. I get that the online conversation on the right has gone hard anti-Spanberger. I don't think that had penetrated the zeitgeist of Virginia yet. That's all. I just think that there were probably more effective ways to go at this. But look, the problem it goes back to what you said earlier. The problem the no had is Trump did start this, right? So how do you and the most, like I said, the most violently anti-Trump region in the country is Northern Virginia. So,
and to Jeffrey's point, like that, what he's showing up there right now, look, 64 million to 35 million. It's not that it's determinative, but you'd much rather be, particularly in the expensive Northern Virginia media market, you'd rather be on the 64 million side.
California, though, was something like a 90-10 ratio.
It was way worse. Yes, way worse. Yes.
It really is fascinating to me. I was just going to say, it is fascinating to me that, look, I don't know how this is going to pan out margin wise. It does, it is looking good for yes right now based on what we're seeing. But I am amazed, given the push on the Republican side to redistrict, that you haven't seen some of these groups come off the sideline and spend bigger on some of these things. Like California, no. But Virginia, where I at least was potentially competitive and looked competitive, and might end up still being 5-6 points. I mean, we'll see how it plays out here. It's not over yet. We haven't projected it, but it's the yes was out early advertising and spending on this, and it feels like the no side, Republican side, was just a little slow in the uptake,
which is odd too, because
they have a ton of money.
The Trump
they have so much money,
$300 million in the bank. I mean, they could have easily spent $20 million on this.
There's headlines every day about how Republicans have so much more money than Democrats do.
Can you go back to the map too when you get a chance?
But Trump never spent. Let's remember, it's funny.
It's so
when you look at the.
You're
right.
Totally
when you look at the big time outside spending money, like totals, the Republicans look like they have this massive advantage. And in theory, they should have a massive advantage. But Trump's cheapskate. and he doesn't like, he has to. It's interesting when they will spend their money and when they won't. They're really spending their money against Massey because they have a reputation. They have to win that, right? They lose to Massey, then everybody will start to be aware.
It starts to
lame
become
duck.
a symbolic, right.
But
whereas it's less so.
But it's still, he could have, they could have spent they could have spent their own money and they didn't. And they waited late.
Club for Growth was nowhere to be found either, right? They were huge in Indiana for the pro redistricting, and they're huge in the primaries now too, for trying to remove some of these state legislators that voted against it. Where were they? They're deep pocketed. Like, you kind of wonder, why weren't they running anti-redistricting ads? I don't know.
It is odd because the data, Jeffrey put this in his post on the Decision Desk HU Substack. The data had it, 4, 6, yes, up in almost everyone, but not like you said, James, not like California, where after like the first 2 weeks, because I heard the same stuff, like, I don't know if it's a referendum on Newsom, blah, blah, blah. It was like, okay, well, it's going to lose. Like, Newsom's going to win. It was marginal, and it's a Democratic leaning state, but the data, even the recent data, didn't suggest it was a blowout, like that there could have been money spent there. It is an interesting, I wonder, although maybe it won't be close enough that they're if it lost 52-48, you'd probably hear people be like, if we had spent $15 million, it would have won. But if it's not as close, maybe it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Anyway, James, we'll let you go. James Downs of National Journal. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me. And, go Celtics.
Oh, look at this guy. Wow. Got that in right at the end. I do like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's a New England guy. So
Jeffrey, explain why. So right now, no is still ahead, but why is, for somebody who looks at that, I always like, let's do the layman. Somebody looks at that, they're like, why are they talking like yes is almost certainly going to win? No is ahead right now. Can you just explain that before we bring in our next guest?
Sure. Well, I mean, I can do one click, which is just to Fairfax County and not having reported anything yet. And again, that's going to be like 13% of the vote. It's the biggest place in the state, roughly an eighth of the population. And it's very Democratic leaning. And it hasn't reported yet. And when it does, yes, we'll move in front almost surely. Now, and also there are some other places that haven't come in. We actually have a very small, but this must be from the western part of Richmond, which is a little bit more competitive because the rest of the city of Richmond is very blue. So it's actually even funny to see no ahead, even if it lasts for 10 seconds. But, we also don't have any vote from Henrico, which is very populous suburbs of Richmond. I was going to point out Virginia Beach here. We're starting to get a bit more of the vote in from there. There's still a fair amount left. So, it could go in different directions, but this is a place where no needs to be ahead by at least 3-ish kind of points. I think 4 points. And that hasn't happened, or at least is not currently happening. I think if yes is ahead in Virginia Beach, that's like a good sign for them.
Okay.
This really is tracking the presidential from 24. It's more closely tracking.
Waiting on Fairfax to come barreling in, and
I'm going to get out my handy dandy old school. My almanac here.
Yes, is slightly underperforming Harris, but only slightly, right?
Harris 52.
Well, actually, I mean,
40,
and that's just right now.
52-46. Chuck was Harris won by 6.
Frankly, for what it's worth, in fact, I'll take us back to this tab. I know our next guest is going to be here shortly, but I'll take you back to this tab. At least in Loudoun and Prince William, which have basically reported entirely, they're running ahead of Harris, which is notable.
Well,
and I think
by a significant margin in both those places.
Yeah. So that
5 and 8 points.
Maybe that gets back to the Northern Virginia thing you guys were talking about. We'll just have to see how some of these other places
it may be right. It may be a bigger margin in Northern Virginia. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Well, it does make sense. I mean, again, Chuck, before you came on, we were talking about Montgomery County, where Virginia Tech is, and how turnout was likely to be lower there. And it's like, yeah, man, it's tough to get a college kid fired up about a congressional constitutional amendment.
Hey, speaking of college kids, I got to share with you guys my favorite piece of ad spending that we got in my household. Okay. We got these handwritten postcards. Okay.
Oh,
and we got one. My son got one. Well, I'm pretty sure they were targeting my son, and I'll explain here in a minute. And it's just a quick handwritten postcard, very nice handwriting. my son's first name is Harrison, and this is important to the story. And at first, I get it. I see he gets this, and look, my son did not request an absentee ballot, and he's in school, and he did vote in the governor's race last year. That was his first time ever to be able to vote, so he was anxious about that. He wasn't engaged in this, and this is a tough thing to get somebody out of state engaged in. He wasn't engaged in this.
It's tough to get somebody in state engaged in, Chuck.
Right. So he gets this postcard, and it was addressed to Harrison Ford. Now, I said, my son's first name is Harrison, and I'm just like, wow, it was, and I was looking to see where it was postmarked. It was definitely a progressive. It was a progressive group. It said paid for by progressive something or other, and it didn't tell him. It said, it wasn't asking him to vote yes or no. It was just asking him to vote. It just simply said, hey, we know, nobody has to know how you voted, but they will know. This whole pressure campaign. Hey, everybody knows knows if you voted or not. You don't want to get caught not voting, which I don't think really bothers him. But person
that's such a Northern Virginia messaging.
Yeah. But the person, I just found it hilarious Ford. That they addressed it to Harrison. So I got Harrison Ford's mail. In my
now
household
that's a good segue, Chuck, because the second most famous person who will come on this podcast tonight after Harrison Ford is none other than Republican political consultant and bon vivant Brad Todd. Can we bring Brad in? There he is. I mean, look at that jacket.
Oh, he's dressed like a real Southern gentleman. He's always got these great coats that you remind me of. Remember the Alabama basketball coach of the 90s,
Wimp Sanderson?
Yeah. He'd always wear those loud jackets,
Yeah, they were crazy. Yeah, for sure.
Hi, Brad.
What's going on, guys?
Well, look, you love to crunch these numbers. We're talking as if it's yeses to lose, even though no is ahead. You see anything that tells you otherwise?
Well, I think you'd have to say that yes has a slight advantage at this point, but I think probably a lot slighter than most Democrats thought coming into this. I'm pegging it off the Attorney General's race in 2025.
Yes.
I worked for Jason Miyares. And, the unique thing about that campaign was it overperformed in a bad year because it did better among independents, particularly higher education, higher income independents. And those are the kind of independents that I think were possibly accessible to know in this race on good government grounds. And so I'm looking at that, and it's pretty consistent so far that no is running 2 or 3 points better county by county in those places where it's all in or nearly all in than Miyares did. I work for Jason, by the way, in full disclosure. He's a friend and a client, both, and I've worked with him since he first started running for anything. And I'm still crushed that the people in my state are so awful that they voted for Jay Jones, but they're end of commercial. No is running a couple points ahead of Jason's number, but the turnout in the red counties is only a touch higher, and it probably needed to be more than a touch higher. Now, of course, that can be balanced out by Northern Virginia and Tidewater being more than a touch lower. But Republicans in the no side probably needed all of those things to work out, right? We probably need no to be off in Tidewater and Northern Virginia. It is off in Northern Virginia as far as turnout goes so far. We'll see about Tidewater as it comes in. We needed it to be up in red counties. It's up, but only by a hair. And we needed to run ahead of Miyares total. And we are, but only by 2 or 3. So that's kind of where I am at this point. But there's still a lot of vote left.
Brad, I wanted to ask you, we were talking about this before you came on, is that, the spending was heavily on yes, about 2 to 1 roughly.
About 4 to 1. About 4 to 1 by my count. Yeah.
So what do you then make? Is it a mistake? We were just talking about the Trump super PAC that's got $300 million in the bank. Why wasn't there? Club for Growth didn't play. The MAGA Inc. didn't play. Was that a mistake? I mean, I understand why you might not want to throw money in California because it's just a pit, right? It's millions and you probably don't move it really. Why was is it lingering from 2025 because those races weren't that cool? What's your sense of why there wasn't more on no?
the no side, but just rural radio. And I don't want to speak for the no campaign, much less for the entire conservative ecosystem. Because on our side, the ecosystem is a little bit more diffuse than it is on the Democrat side. Most of the conservative groups really make their own decisions, and they don't take orders from anybody. I always say that to say that hurting Republicans is like hurting cats is an insult to cats. And so as for Club for Growth and any of those conservative groups, NRA sent out a mailer to its members in the last week urging a no vote. But there's not a lot of the national conservative groups that were engaged. I think Susan B. Anthony may have done some groundwork, but not as much as on the Dem side. But I also want to pull the curtain back here and say that $60 million in the hard campaign, and we think we'll see 20 more when it's all counted on the Dem side to be up at 80 million. Probably just 2 or 3 billionaires who got real excited about this. It's not Hakeem Jeffries deciding to, bet half the budget from this fall's House campaigns on this race. This is probably just a couple of folks who are really well off who got interested. And I'll just say this about Republican mega donors: they get interested way too late, and they're investors by nature, and they want to buy things that look like they're going to win.
Yeah.
And so when you present them with something that says, "Hey, we haven't won here in 5 years. The last time we tried, we got skunked by 17. But give us $10 billion and let us try." They just don't like that pitch.
Yeah.
I
think that's such an important thing, such an important point of big liberal donors, big conservative donors, totally different. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah.
All right. So if I were trying to strategize on the no campaign, I was looking for some target voters. I would probably be obsessed with the Spanberger Miaris voter, right? That would be the heart. Who was that voter?
Well, they existed in two places, really. Suburban Richmond was where they existed. So Abby Spanberger overperformed in the counties around Richmond: Chesterfield, Hanover, Louisa, Goochland, Enrico, Western Enrico. Eastern Enrico is bad for Republicans. Western's bad, but you can make a dent there. And so that's the kind of voter where she overperformed. Then the other place, believe it or not, was in Northern Virginia. They typically were people who skipped the AG's race. If you look at Alexandria and McLean, those areas in Northern Virginia, there were plenty of Spanberger voters who just sat out that race, or they wrote someone in.
They voted for Spanberger and just did not vote in the AG race at all.
Well, they didn't vote for Jay Jones. A few of them voted for Miaris. Some of them wrote a name in that was not going to happen, and plenty sat out. The sit out rate was really high relative to normal in the upper income. I'm talking about Eastern Alexandria, Northern.
Do you think
Arlington.
These are like the format? I joke, Brad. You sort of generally know. I think where I live in Northern Virginia, I joke that I live in the last Romney precinct of Arlington.
Exactly. That's exactly the kind of voter. Yeah,
and
John
that's who
Warner.
the voter
These were
is,
John
right?
Warner, Bill Clinton voters, right?
Yeah.
In the old days.
Yeah.
And so there are not a ton of them left, but by the way, you're seeing some of that. No is going to do better in Alexandria, for instance, than say Winsome Sears did and say Jason Miaris did last time, because I do think most of those people who are not Spanberger, not Jay Jones voters are going to end up having pulled the trigger for no tonight. The problem for no and of course we still have a lot to count, and Tidewater, a lot of Tidewater's not in yet, and it may not come in at the levels projected. So if you're a no voter out there, you should still take heart that it's up 4. But if it doesn't make it tonight, it's because there are independents increasingly. There just aren't enough of them in Virginia, and to get them, you have to have an argument that is sort of not Jersey-like. Glenn Youngkin had an argument about schools that was not Jersey-like.
And when you say not Jersey, you mean what jersey?
It means like a team jersey, I believe. Not to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what you meant.
Yeah, not a red-blue issue, right?
It's funny you say that.
This has to be not red-blue.
I did not think that I got most of my advertising through watching sports, right? And we know this, and the Nats games. I thought the no ads were okay, and then they put Glenn Youngkin in, and I thought, you're partisanizing it. You're red coding it. Don't red code your no ads, right? Like, and I know it's hard in political ads, but it seemed like too many of the no ads to me were sort of too easily red coded.
Well, the thing about this race is, if it's an late April race, and so your first instinct is, well, turnout's going to be pretty low. We just need to get more of our base out than they get of theirs.
Totally.
And we need to not make their base mad, right? And that's so the Democrats took the opposite approach and said, hey, let's make this as big as ever. Now, by the way, when you have 4 times the money, that's a lot easier choice to make.
That's what we were talking about. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, the logical answer is let's start spending money when you have 4 times the money.
We got money. Let's spend it.
Yeah, right. I have worked on very few campaigns where we had a monetary advantage and we didn't spend money. Like we held back. There's been a few Jindals in Louisiana where we had back until we thought the timing was right, but it's rare. I also think it's notable tonight though that in the end, Democrats needed Barack Obama to carry this thing across the line. If they get across, and they're not across yet, Abby Spanberger could not get the football in the end zone. And that's coming 5 months after she won what was heralded as a nation-changing election. And so Abby Spanberger, the Democrats have told you she doesn't have much equity. They yanked her off television. And they didn't put Don Scott, and they didn't put Louise Lucas. And, I mean, this is telling you that they think that the leaders of their party are toxic, and they had to go back to a president who should be playing golf to put him on the air. And
That is a good
I
point.
think that's a notable finding.
Hey, Brad, can we
don't
talk
disagree.
about? Can we talk about? And Jeffrey, can you pull up the new map that if yes passes? Brad, we were talking about this earlier before you came on, but ostensibly 10-1 is a possibility. Do you, as a Republican consultant who knows Virginia, when you look at this, this would be for folks to know this. Yes has not been called yet, but if yes wins, this will be the new map,
and it doesn't get shot down by the state courts, which is still a possibility.
Yeah,
right. I'm so glad you brought that up, Jeff. I mean, remember the current court ruling is against this map. That is the ruling. That's on the merits of the case. This has to be overturned. So the state court, district court in Tazewell County must be overturned for this referendum to even count. And if you've read the case and you're honest with yourself, you know that it's a black letter violation of the state constitution. Now, courts don't always follow black letter law, especially those that get appointed. This one is appointed.
And the state legislature does the appointing in Virginia.
The state legislature does the
states to do that:
appointing.
South Carolina and Virginia.
Yeah. So the court, I think, tonight's still in jeopardy. Yes, and the court's way in jeopardy for yes. Let hypothetical land because we have time to kill and talk about it. Right? That's
when
I don't
you
want
look
to
at this map, when you look at this map, do you see opportunity? I mean, this is always the danger when you try to slice the onion real thin.
Absolutely. I think the 6th district is one that Republicans can win even in 2026. You're seeing tonight, in order for Democrats to win, it requires on a high college turnout. It's a string of colleges. It's James Madison and UVA and Virginia Tech. You're seeing tonight they don't always show up unless it's a presidential election. So I think, and furthermore, the Democrat field there is probably Tom Perriello, who the opposition book on him is thicker than your grandma's Bible.
Congressman, right?
He's voted for everything that's unpopular, and so I think that district to me is one that Democrats might think they dummy mandered. A dummy mander is when you overdraw, and the reason it happens is because you don't make your own members take on enough pain, and you don't put enough people in harm's way. I also think that over time the second district was a swing district to start with. I've worked in that district before. Scott Ridgel used to be my client. It's even a swing district with this draw. It's not as much a swing district as it currently is, but Virginia Beach is the largest locality in this district. In the United States of America, there's not much more of a swing jurisdiction than Virginia Beach.
That's right.
Now, let's go back to the current map, Brad.
Yep.
How many seats do you think Democrats realistically could pick up with the current map pre-gerrymander?
Well, I think Elaine Luria, who's the former member in the second, running against Jen Kiggins in the second, is a very strong candidate on the current map. That's why the first iteration that Democrats put out of this really didn't change the second much at all, because they think Illyria wins no matter what.
Yeah, right.
You know, Rob Whitman's my client in the first district. Shannon Taylor's a well-funded opponent against him this time. Rob is a fantastic campaigner, and he never quits working. He never quits shaking hands. He's also the congressional savant on the Chesapeake Bay, which is a huge issue with both parties care about there. So Rob was going to win, but Democrats were going to make it a real hard race for sure. The 7th is sort of a swing district. Republicans could win it in a great year, fight to get close in a neutral year, probably lose it in a bad year. So I think that, and by the way, the 5th there, John McGuire's seat is not out of reach for Dems. This one in Central Virginia, it's fickle. You know, there are a lot of sort of lower income voters who are willing to vote for the right Democrat. If you look at how they vote in state elections. And so
it's happened before in that district.
It's happened before.
Brad, how close is that district to the one that Perriello represented? I assume it's more Republican now, but
Perriello was in the 5th when he was a member of Congress.
Yeah,
but it had a lot of this. It had a lot of this.
It has the southern part of the district in it when he was
and up to Albemarle, kind of like that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But I you know what I'm coming at here is that, I've been obsessed with this, that basically I think Democrats could have done nothing and in a great night for them been at 8-3 in Virginia.
The current Virginia map I think is best understood as a 6-4-1. And you could argue it's a 2
with
3
with 2 is the 1. Virginia 2 is the 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. With Virginia 2 is 1. But if you really want to stretch it, it's a 6-2-3 with the 1st and the 7th district also in that swing category.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I want to say about this map though, and this is a bipartisan map. I didn't love it when it came out, but one thing I do like about it is that the regions are all intact. The Shenandoah Valley is 1 district, Southwest Virginia is 1 district. Central Virginia is 1 district. The Piedmont is 2 districts.
You mean it's a community of interest, Brad?
I mean, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, the map, if yes wins, is ridiculous and bad for democracy. It just is. I mean, I just don't. There's no way you can conclude that taking parts of Fairfax County and dipping it all the way. And by the way, Republicans, it's just not. It is not good,
Chris.
Just statistically, Chris, there's this. If yes wins, the Virginia has the most gerrymandered map in the country.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
Look, I had Don Beyer on my Newsfare show a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this, and I joked with him. I said, "You used to be my congressman, but I guess you're not going to be anymore." And he talked about. He goes, I think it's a lot of people are not going to love. He goes, I'm looking forward to getting to know new people. I mean, he was the happy warrior.
He had a spin.
Right? He had a spin, and it's pretty clear to me.
And hey, this man ran for statewide office a number of times. So,
but by the way, it's pretty clear to me. Beyer ain't doing this more than once.
Yeah.
But he said, But he also noted, he goes, I got to open up like 4 district offices now.
Yes,
I didn't have to have that many district offices before because it was compact and one or 2 could do it. This thing is going down to the northern neck, and Arlington is split in half.
Yep.
Reagan Airport to Colonial Williamsburg.
Yeah,
that's a congressional district.
Beyond
this is the new 8th, or the old 8th I have, or the current 8th I have on screen, and then which is very compact. Inner suburbs, inner northern suburbs.
It's Arlington and Alexandria.
And then Brad, what was striking is you guys, where both Chuck and I live, but like as I'm driving around Arlington County, which is hugely Democratic, just in case people don't know.
Oh, it's like 70%.
I saw, and I never want to be the guy who's like, I saw a lot of yard signs, but I will say I saw a hell of a lot more yard signs than I thought that said don't split Arlington County.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating kind. I mean, because there's not a more Democratic area in the state.
It's so not showing up in the vote tonight that enough people have that sentiment, right? It's 80-20. And 80-20. And if you go back again using our peg from the Attorney General's race last time, Arlington was 77-22.
Yeah.
So it's pretty comparable to where it was last time.
Hey, Brad, can I ask you a big picture question? What is when people say, Miaris, or when they say, man, it's just a really heavy lift for Republicans now. How do you describe what does it look like for a Republican to win statewide in Virginia now? I'm not going to ask you 5 years from now or 5 years ago. So young can I know, right? But give me a like now. What's the formula? Whether it's what kind of candidate does it need to be, or what does the math need to look like to add up to a win?
Well, I think you have to have credentials on something on which Republicans have a strong advantage with independents, right? And so, or Democrats have to have somebody who has a real weakness on something that they would normally have an advantage on with independents. So, Terry McAuliffe ended up with a weakness on education, so that was decisive. In Jason Miyares' case, he has, he might run again. He has an advantage on crime. That's the thing where independents trust Republicans on crime. I think secondarily, Republicans have to continue to grow their vote with the immigrant community in Northern Virginia. The Democrats are doing everything they can to tick them off with the way they're acting on magnet schools and with a lot of education policy, frankly. And so I think you have to continue to do better with Hispanics in Prince William County and South Asians in Loudoun County and Northern Fairfax County. So that's kind of piece two of the puzzle. And you need to get them to show up too. It's new Americans are in Virginia vote a little less often than sort of native Virginians. So do new Virginians vote less, by the way, of all stripes. And so you have to get them to show up in the governor's race if that's the election you're talking about. I think thirdly, the suburbs of Richmond have been slipping on Republicans. It was one of the few places in the eastern United States where Kamala Harris did better than Joe Biden. Chesterfield, Hanover, Enrico. You have to stop that. You may not have to go backwards, but you need to stop those three counties from sliding. And then fourthly, I think you have to look down to Hampton Roads. Virginia Beach is the bellwether of the state. You got to win it, and you got to have a candidate who can win it. There are a couple ways to win it. One way is to, Virginia Beach is actually a cosmopolitan community, has a fair amount of national and international presence because of the Navy's presence there. So you have to have somebody who has that perspective. And, there's a coastal attitude there that's a little different. You have to have someone who's not offensive to that approach. And then third, you have to have, it's a blue collar community, believe it or not. You got to be able to have a blue collar appeal. So I kind of put all of that together, and you have to do that without losing your rural high number. That Trump number, some serious dramatically. She really underperformed in the rural areas. Her numbers just weren't near high enough. She had other problems too, but the reason it was a blowout is because her rural numbers weren't good enough. And so you have to do all those things I've described. And then there's one other factor, which is the Democrats are moving further and further left in Virginia, and that may open up the middle. They built their party in Virginia on Mark Warner and Tim Kaine and Ralph Northam, who ran as a country doctor. The Democrat brand that ascended was this moderate purple brand. And hell, Tim Kaine doesn't even talk that way anymore, So, and he's not the most liberal one they have. And so I think Don Scott and Louise Lucas and Abby Spanberger's acquiescence to them is pulling Democrats out of the middle. And that's going to open up some votes to come back to us in places like Stafford and Prince William and Spotsylvania, those exurban areas where they voted Republican 10 years ago. They've begun to vote Democrat now, but they're not for crazy Democrat. And so that's you asked me and I thought about it a lot.
I think that was
a good pitch.
I think for people who need to understand it, it's like it's doable, but you need a bunch of things to come together, right? This is what we were talking about. Is like, yes, should win, given the financial advantage, given the state, given the national political environment. It should. Anyway, I don't. We've had Brad on so long that it went from light to dark where he is. We should probably let him go. Chuck, you got anything else for Brad?
Well, look, Brad, Florida pretty well. You're pretty wired in. The former governor, current senator, has been a longtime client. So I know Florida well. Does this guarantee Florida redistricting in your mind? If yes wins?
If yes wins, I think Florida redistricts. If no wins, I think it probably doesn't.
Yeah.
I think this is all over. Although Calais is still out there.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. The Supreme Court decision that is coming down the pike, just to clarify for people.
Yeah, in Louisiana, right? This is Voting Rights Act, right?
It could be bigger. You could get 2 in Georgia, 2 in Louisiana, 2 in Alabama. Jim Clyburn's seat in South Carolina is not a VRA seat, but South Carolina could certainly feel peer pressure to do that. It's and all those things are hard. Every legislative thing at the state level is hard this late in the year. But I kind of think if no wins tonight, then redistricting is over for the cycle.
Yeah.
That's my gut.
All right, Brad.
Now that would have been a ad campaign to really pitch to voters. Hey, we'll end this.
We'll
it's
end
all
this
over.
madness.
We'll
Just, it'll
stop
be
the
over.
national nightmare. Just vote no. All right. Thanks.
Vote
thanks,
no,
Brad.
or we shoot this dog. Right? That's it.
Oh God.
That's exactly right.
All right, we'll try that ad campaign. Only,
Brad.
but that might only work in South Dakota. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
I'll be here all night.
That's right.
All right,
Okay.
Brad.
All right, guys. Thanks
Good
a
to
lot.
see you.
See you.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, he was great. That was great. All right. So Jeffrey has a little something that Chuck that I think is worth dropping in.
Yeah.
Here. Jeffrey, go ahead.
So while we were chatting there, Fairfax has been reporting some more of the vote there, and not quite a third of the expected vote there is in. The no lead has been shrinking, and at this point, decision desk.
It's going to flip in about every.
Yeah,
In about a minute.
yeah.
In about a
The
30
decision
seconds.
desk
As soon as
HQ.
Fairfax, yeah.
Yeah, so our race projection team is looking at a yes win when we see the final numbers out of Fairfax, because given what's outstanding there and the lean of that place, it's very hard to imagine a world where they don't come. In fact, there we go.
Yep.
In fact, hey, Lauren,
hit the graphic.
Lauren,
There
you
it
run
is.
the graphic.
I think it's really nice that we let Brad Todd leave, right? So he didn't have to be here for this.
Yeah, so
But,
Decision
go
Desk
ahead.
HQ projects that the congressional redistricting referendum in Virginia will pass. So no currently has the lead, but based on what's left outstanding, yes, we'll take the lead as those counties continue reporting, and
Jeffrey,
that's
can you
really
just
down
dig
to
into
Fairfax.
those I was going to say, dig into the counties that we're waiting for that make it. I think most people are like, why are they projecting yes is going to win when it's behind? Explain to people like where.
Yeah,
the
sure.
vote
So
is
actually, let me jump over here because I think this is helpful. So this is again back on our votes portal, and so in terms of like the places that have reported the most votes, you see Fairfax County, which is the big kahuna, is only about 30% in. And so it will be at the top of this list because I just sorted everything by votes by a substantial margin. It's not quite 2.5 times as many votes as Loudoun, but getting in that direction. And then Chesterfield, which has become more Democratic leaning, and Henrico. These are both,
which is, by the way, what Brad was just talking about, where
big
they're
counties
slipping
around
Richmond,
Richmond,
suburban counties,
and they're much
right.
more. They've become. Henrico is very Democratic now on the whole. Chesterfield is now kind of a light blue, but there's a lot of votes still left there. As you kind of go down here, those to me are sort of big indicators. Newport News is a Democratic leaning city, and Tidewater only about 60%. And same with Hampton, which is right next to Newport News. And the city of Richmond, only about 37%. And that's like an 80% Democratic kind of place. So if you're looking at those votes, it's just it's just sort of just a matter of time for yes to take the lead, given the patterns that we've seen so far.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm just seeing, by the way, just to add one quick thing, I'm seeing from our friend Scott Tranter, Kingpin of Decision HQ. He says the remaining vote was less than 20% mathematically. Yes is going ahead. Like it's all the places where the vote is left.
Mm-hmm.
I think yes may have just gone ahead, by the way. Overall.
I think
anyway,
I think it may be about to, but there's like a small delay on our
okay, got it.
On what things show, but yeah.
All right. Has everybody on this stream realize when the filing deadline is now for these new districts?
It's got to be soon, right?
It's this Friday.
I was going to say,
So I just want to run down. Okay. If this yes vote is certified, if our projection is correct, and this is what happens. House Bill 29 immediately becomes law. The new map is in place. Filing deadline is this Friday.
Democracy.
I believe they're allowing signatures from like anywhere in Virginia or something. There's like another, because they were so worried about the lines.
Obviously. Now, there's the lawsuit, right?
Yep.
So if somehow this referendum is considered unconstitutional, then we might see another delay, because now the primary itself is now, instead of in June, it's been delayed to August 4th.
That's right.
If this thing gets, loses in court, and by the way, legal briefs are due Thursday. Filing deadline is Friday. As you can see,
big week in Virginia.
It's kind of
It's insane.
It's kind of
frankly,
crazy.
It's just insane.
It's bad for voters and bad for democracy, right?
Well, and that's the thing. We may not know, candidates may not know 100% for sure if they're running in a constitutional district. It could be weeks still, even though we've had this referendum.
A fascinating example of that, actually, Chuck, is to think about. So, like, if we look at the current map, and Brad mentioned this, but Shannon Taylor is going to be the Democratic nominee against Rob Whitman. She's running in the current first against Whitman. She's, I believe, the Commonwealth attorney for Henrico County. So western part of Henrico is in that district. So she's running there. Well, under the new lines,
yeah, she's not even in the district.
Now notice again. Notice Eastern, very much like the northern neck and into Richmond. Under the new lines, she'd be running in the 5th district, which is way over here, taking in parts of Southside and still that part of Henrico where she's from, and western edges of Richmond and parts.
But she wouldn't be running against Whitman.
But no. I mean, this is where Whitman is from, and this is where she would be running.
He's
so
in the 8th.
For her,
like,
8th.
Right.
Yeah, he would be in the new 8th. He'd be in a really tough spot. I would wager that if this map happens, that he would probably opt to retire. His home base is here in the northern neck of Virginia. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
you think we could have a retirement or two by Friday?
Well,
morning?
actually, I take that back only because of what you got at there, which is the filing deadlines such in terms of timelines that maybe he continues running. Maybe he now that he's running, and it's kind of a twist in the wind situation. I don't know.
There's not a good solution there for
because
him,
if it is the 8th district and Whitman's in that district, Don Beyer will defeat him. It would be very, very difficult for Rob Whitman to win there, even if Whitman has a track record of running well ahead of, say, Donald Trump in recent elections.
Reagan National Airport to Colonial Williamsburg. That is if anybody knows anything about Virginia, that is unbelievable. Like, in terms of the communities of interest, I guess, have just been totally blown up. I mean, it's.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, and, critics of this map certainly made a understandable comparison of saying things like, it's kind of Illinoising Virginia. And that's, they're not wrong. I mean,
it's taking Northern Virginia and turning it into Cook County. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, and because of the current setup of the parties, for Democrats who are trying to draw advantageous maps, that's what they have to do. Their votes are very concentrated in the urban and inner suburban areas of major metropolitan areas. So if they're going to draw an advantageous map, they got to stretch them out.
It's why Republicans do it the other way. They crack those areas, like Utah, and obviously now they have a new map and all that stuff. But when Utah originally got rid of its lone Democratic member of Congress, it did it by essentially cracking Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
and we've seen Texas
between all 4 districts.
Yeah. We've seen a crack. We've seen that attempted with Austin back in the day.
Yes.
It is. So this is right. You either overload it if you're on team blue or you crack it if you're on team red.
And it's just bad either way. It's bad for people. Anyway, what else do we got? Anything? I just, that was a nice tidy 90 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if just, if you want to humor me, because I'm from, I grew up in Virginia and know too much about Virginia, spent too much time looking at Virginia. I was just going to maybe bring up this point of the conversation just for people who might be interested. If these new lines take effect, which is still an if, again,
I love what you're going here.
Case,
yeah, show us these things.
But so Eugene Vindman is currently in the current 7th district, but his new district would be the 1st because most of his 7th district is in the new 1st. The new 7th district is this lobster scorpion thing that goes all the way from
everywhere.
Arlington to stretches over to like Rockingham County and Augusta County.
By the way, this is my new district. This is the district I'm in because I lost. I'm not in Beyer. This is the part I'm in. So tell me more about my district here, will you?
It stretches from Arlington through Fairfax down, and stretches into central Virginia, and then takes a hard left on one side and a due west and due east.
Is there
on
a
the
current incumbent or incumbents?
No,
in
that district.
No, it's a totally new district.
No, it's an
technically,
open
right?
seat. So if I go back to this other one, because there are, I just said too many.
All right, Chris, you want to run?
Well, now's the time.
Yeah.
Todd Saliza ticket.
Let's do it.
Dorothy McAuliffe is running.
You do half
Terry
a year
McAuliffe's
and I'll do-
wife.
That's right. His
Dan
wife is
Helmer,
Dorothy.
This is Dorothy McAuliffe.
State delegate is running.
Yep.
There's at least another state senator who I think is running. There are already a bunch of people who are eyeing this open seat.
This could be a race to the left in the primary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we talked about Whitman, the 8th district.
Shannon
I think
Taylor
he'd
would
probably
then-
end up there.
And Shannon
And then,
Taylor, who is running against Whitman currently, would then be against us, in theory. at
John
least against
McGuire,
right.
probably, because McGuire, I mean, again, though, this is that situation where do they end up running in those places?
Right.
This was me just sort of being hypothetical about the makeup of the districts and where they're from, and also considering, just what they would maybe do. Like Ben Klein, most of his districts is still in the 6th, same number as the one he currently has, but he could conceivably be like, you know what? My chances of winning are better if I go and try to run against Morgan Griffith in the Republican
You have
primary
that
in the
seat
9th.
forever. Right. R plus
But
49.
I have to think that this district's competitive enough that Klein would have a lot of backing to go for it.
The 6th is the one that's all the universities, right? Kind of down the center of the state. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's another one that could get quirky in the primary and go too far. I mean, the question I have is, and that's right, when Democrats have won some of these lean red districts, it's when the Republicans nominate somebody just too conservative for that right-leaning voter, for that center-right voter. We could now see the mirror image of it, because we've seen these Democratic primaries, especially in Northern Virginia, could get super progressive.
Absolutely. Especially with the kind of
but I don't know,
winds blowing, Chuck, right?
But
like
can Republicans find candidates who are not MAGA, right?
I think
that's what
based on the current
bunch of
candidate situation, and is the 7th is probably where that is a more feasible thing. You have a ton of candidates. You only need a plurality in Virginia. There's no runoff rules.
That's right.
And we just saw in New Jersey with Mejia, the
new congresswoman,
the 11th
Mikey
new
Sherrill's
congresswoman,
old seat, right?
Mikey, she ran as sort of the out and out progressive in that race, and she won against the splintered field in the primary. And that seat is a little to the left of where the 7th is, but it's not too different in terms of the partisan makeup.
Yep.
So you could see a more progressive candidate maybe come out of a crowded primary in the 7th.
That's why the Todd Saliza ticket, moderate on everything. That's when it's going to. Chuck will serve for 6 months of the year, then I will serve for 6 months of the year. Who could argue with that? Chuck, any other thoughts before we go?
Well, no, I mean, I think it's this is one of those where this is a win, but there's a lot of, they took a lot of damage. They took a lot of hits, right?
Abigail Spanberger took a lot.
Huge, and you knew it. And you remember when we talked about her big victory, I said, I don't think if I were her, I would love to have to start so partisan.
We talked about it the night,
and we had it. I almost want people to we said. I mean, I hate to
Lauren run the tape.
I know, pull a muscle on this, but we absolutely were previewing
the night
what could happen.
I remember on this, yes.
And Pat McCrory talks about how his Republican legislature dragged him to the right, messed up his political brand. That's what it feels like happened. And
she's only got one term.
She's still new, and the legislature's rolling her right now. Yep. That's what it feels like. Yeah. And it just, it was a big hit.
Yes, absolutely had every advantage and should win. And Jeffrey, what do you think if you had to, and I'm asking you to guess, which I know you don't like doing, what do you think we're looking at for final margin for yes? Do you have any sense? Is it like 6?
Something in that
Harris won by 6,
which is similar
Harris
to the
won
Harris
52-46.
Like the Harris margin.
Yeah. And by the way, I can't tell you how many Virginia races, right? Like just like this. Oh, look, it's 80% reporting and it's a 1-point race. And then the last 19
Northern Virginia
comes in and it
70% of the vote, or only a third of the votes in from Fairfax, which is the largest vote source in the state, and
it's
will
70-30
probably-
yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So it's yeah. I mean, it's
All right,
pretty
I got
clear.
one. I got
Go
one
ahead.
other margin update that will really interest Chuck and I. Nationals 5, Braves 3, top of the 6th. Come on, let's win one now.
How about that guy, James Wood? You know, I believe he's projected, is on a 50 home run projection right
We've got to
now.
get Skelly and Tranter on the projections there for
Well,
James
you guys
Wood's
aren't
home
going to
run
like me
totals.
because I grew up a Braves fan.
He's a damn Braves fan, just like everybody
That's all right.
south of like Charlottesville.
Man, I
There was only one team in the South
only one
forever.
team.
Ted Turner
and
did
I had
it.
TBS.
I know.
That's
of
right,
course, so did
TBS.
everyone.
I was
I-
a kid in the
please.
90s into the early 2000s.
Ron
Like, what a
Gannon.
golden time, you
Look,
know?
all I
Like,
ask is, I'm glad
Stabby
you're
only
not one
got
of those
one
Braves.
title out of it, you know?
I'm glad you're not one of those Braves fans that wants to shove Dale Murphy belongs in the Hall of Fame down
Put him
my
in the
throat
Hall
all
of
the time.
Fame.
And I
know,
I
man.
like Dale
that's
Murphy.
That's a whole other
I-
live stream. We're gonna do
Yeah.
people who should or should not be in the Hall of Fame.
Let me ask you
no,
one important question, Skelly. Freddie Freeman, will he go into the Hall of Fame as a Brave or a Dodger?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's
have
really-
a guess.
That's really painful, actually.
Yeah, I thought that would.
How
I
long did he
honestly-
play for the Braves? A decade? Is he that old?
7 or 8 seasons.
I think he should go in as a Brave. I think of him as a Brave, Chuck, but you're a Dodgers fan, so you may think of him as a Dodger.
Well, but I'm less of it. It the most iconic. He's got the second most iconic home run in Dodger history after Kirk Gibson,
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
and
that's true.
he's got now multiple World Championships with the Dodgers.
I know he does.
I guess it depends
Well,
if,
that dude
he,
does
if
his
Freeman
hit.
stays with the Dodgers the rest of the way, then I
Yeah.
could see him going in as a Dodger.
Going as a Brave.
But I will tell you, for me, he's always going to be a Brave because my God, the guy. Talk about
850
even
against the
No matter
Nats.
how good the Nats were, good or bad, they could never get Freddie Freeman out.
He literally hit 850. He's just
It
incredible.
really
I wanted
stung
to hate
when
him
that
so
fell
bad, but he
apart
seems
and
like a
they
good
didn't
human.
re-sign him. That really
Yes.
that stung. He was very
Well,
popular.
A
So.
good thing for you, Braves fan, that they were bad for like 1 year and now they're good again. Just talk to me and Chuck. We're in the middle of the second rebuild.
Right.
All right, I gotta run.
They literally tore down the rebuild as they were building it. Like, it's the worst feeling in the world.
We laid this field turf. We're going to rip it up and put another turf in. All right, I got to run. Thanks, gentlemen.
Good to see you guys. Thank
Always
you,
a pleasure.
Skelly.
We're
Thank
going to
you,
be here.
Chuck.
Hey, every election night that matters, right? Chuck always says this, which I think is really important. Tell him, Chuck.
Yeah, we're going to be here. If it's Tuesday and it means something to what's going to happen in campaign 2026 and who's going to get control, we're going to be here. May's a busy month. The big test, probably the biggest Tuesday is going to be. We're going to find out Donald Trump's lame duck is
Kentucky.
on the ballot. How
Is that
lame
the
duck?
18th, Skelly?
Yeah, that's the big
19th.
one to me.
19th.
That's where we're going to find out. If he beats Thomas Massey, that duck ain't quacking yet. And if he loses to Thomas Massey, that duck's going to be a quacking.
Remind me, guys, to tell you I can't tell you on camera, off camera, what Massey did after his wedding. And it's not X-rated. It's just odd. I will tell you that after I heard this from a Kentucky person. All right.
I'm
I
sure
gotta run.
it may involve firearms, is my guess.
It doesn't, but it involves slaughtering things. I'll just
All right.
leave it at that.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's nice.
Bye, everyone.
What a note to end on.
That's
Thanks,
why you
y'all.
watch.